Welcome to the Soully Living Podcast, where we break down various life topics, bring on inspirational guests to speak about their experiences and their life journeys, and encourage you to swim through your own thoughts, emotions, and feelings, to inspire a change within you, and hopefully lead to an outer change in your own personal reality. I ask that throughout this episode and all future episodes, that you come with an open mind, an open heart, and a willingness to look at yourself in a different way, and look at the world in a different way. I'm very grateful that each and every one of you tuning in today in this current moment, and I look forward to sharing with many more moments with you. And with that, let's dive on in.
Hey. Welcome back to Soully Living Podcast with your host, me, Joshua Sepsi.
Joshua Sepsi.
Yeah, boy. Ow, 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 ow.
Woohoo.
Come on, just roaring by. I don't know if y'all heard that.
Man, they're out there for you. They're out there for you. Got the lowriders out there supporting your name.
Yep, boy. And we got our co-host of the year, Nicki, Tama, Chesky.
Thanks. Thank you.
Pow, 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 pow. Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Sorry for the hiatus. Appreciate your patience. It's been busy. But today's topic, I like that thing. That's not the topic. Just wanted a life incense, a little drum roll, a little suspense as we get going here. Today's topic, we're actually going over and talking about choices. You make them every day, you make them subconsciously, you do it without even thinking about it. And so, here's where we're going to talk about choices. A couple things. Oh, you already got questions.
Yeah, because I just don't even, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but I was just like, what made me make the choice to light that? Because I'm just kidding, you told me to, so that's why, but
But you had a choice.
but I did have a choice.
Or did you?
I?
No,
I'm
alright,
just kidding,
anyways,
I'm
we're
kidding.
going to,
Yeah.
one of the choices, one thing I really want to talk about is starting off with, are choices either good or bad? Alright, I want to talk about that, I want to clarify that. We'll get into that. Then also, you brought up like self-sabotage in making choices. And I was like, oh, awareness. And I thought of like awareness. Like, are you aware of the self-sabotage in some of the choices you're making? Discerning between opportunities and like when to take opportunities and when to not take opportunities, right? And making a choice in that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you make the choice to do something and it's like, well, this feels like it set me off track. In reality, it didn't. You had to learn a lesson, but it wasn't necessarily the direction you wanted to go. So we'll talk a little bit about that. As we get down into nitty gritty, I want to discuss, because we've done addiction. So we're going to talk about our habits and addictions. Are they choices? So that's a big one. And I think there's controversy on that, so I want to get into that a little bit, have some fun. And then the last one, I love this one. Do you really have choices? Let's talk all about choices and get to the end and be like, well, do you actually have choices?
Yeah.
So that'll be kind of our agenda, my little black book of ideas and thoughts and things. So, let's get started.
Jiggy.
Let's get jiggy with it.
That's what I thought you were going.
Also, I'm now 30 years old. That feels weird.
Let's go, Josh. That's
Super
crazy.
cool. Had a beautiful birthday. What else? Oh yeah, finally reached a year of podcasts.
That's crazy. We gotta do something, bro.
Dude,
I was
been a
out
year.
of town.
Yeah, she decided to
Sorry,
go to Italy
guys.
for a little bit,
That was
which
also
also
why.
put us back a little
Yeah,
bit.
sorry. Well, technically, no.
Technically, no.
Just
Yeah.
like-
Technically, I started a
No.
new job and things got busy and you know,
No.
living life.
It's all good. I was living my life too.
That's what we do best. It was a choice.
I have a life
We
too.
made the choice.
I have a life too, Josh.
I have a life too. So let's start swimming with the first topic. Are choices really good or bad? Now, first off, Nikki, what do you think? I'm gonna pick your brain for a second.
Bro, there's so many ways where my mind goes, and I twiddle with these thoughts a lot of like good and bad, right, wrong, because like we have to have some sense of like morality and principles and values and stuff, but everybody has their own spectrum of what that is and like priorities and like how we like level those out on our decision making thought processes is like different, but like I would say maybe wait, did we say bad or good, right or wrong, same thing, but I was just say like there is an evident like we can identify what is like pure light or like what is pure dark or negative, right? I feel like positive and negative are real, but there's a spectrum of positive and negative too. But I definitely think that there is like both. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like good and bad choices depends on how you're looking at it and like thinking about it. Because like if you're thinking like on like the wavelength of am I making a good or bad choice for my life, like it depends on like what you're trying to achieve, I guess. And you could like contrast it against that and see like is this outcome, is my desired outcome like being achieved based on my choices. And I guess that's where you can like kind of see
Say
like
if it was
whether it's good or bad.
Okay. So you're saying like you can determine if a choice was good or bad based on the outcome that was provided from the choice.
Yeah, because then I feel like consequences and like religion and all that kind of stuff, that's where like people get into like the fear of like, oh, am I doing something right or wrong, or like morality or something. But
What was our signal?
oh, dude, bunny ears, bro.
I forgot what it was.
No, you're right. It was man, what was it? Oh, it was this. That was so funny, bro. That had me dead the last episode.
That was so good.
Dude, recently, real quick, just tangent, just a funny moment real quick. My friend.
We're talking about how many times she says life, by the way.
Yeah.
We're just bringing it to the forefront at this point.
Yeah, it might as well just let them in on it, so I just feel worse, so I can stop doing it.
Anyways, what were you saying?
You're right.
Tangent.
Oh, do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Real quick.
It was funny because my friend, my brother's girlfriend / my friend, she came over to my house. I was like locked in on music, like making music on my computer, and I look up and she's going like this to me. She's going like this, and dude, I look up and I was like, "Yo!" And she's like, "No, dude, I was trying to call you." But it was funny because I had my headphones like this, and I was like looking up, and she was like, "Dude." But then I looked up and I was like, "Yo." It's funny. This has many meanings.
It does have many meanings. Going back to it, I could see how you would determine, based on the choice you make, if it became good or bad. If it was a good or bad choice, depending on the outcome. Now, what I'm gonna go and say, I'm gonna say complete opposite. I don't think a choice can be good. I don't think a choice can be bad. Now, here's where it does get tricky, where, okay, that was a bad choice. You drove your car into the side of the thing, and yeah, you might have hurt someone or killed someone. Bad choice, right? The lesson that had to be made in that choice just happened and just is. You know, it was neither good nor bad at the time. It was just a choice that was made, and it in turn created a bad effect, right? A bad outcome. Something that was negative, something that was positive. But this also falls in, I think, really hand in hand with the intentionality and the other topic that we have here about intention and choices. Of what is your intention behind the choices that you are making? If you have, malice intentions in a choice that you're making, ultimately it's going to lead to a bad outcome. Whether you feel like it's going to make you feel good inside or not. I'm going to go shoot up a school. It's a horrible experience, horrible choice to be made. Maybe it's trying to get them something, some sort of psychology, some sort of psychosis that's got you thinking that's a great idea to make you feel something, to make you feel heard or seen or understood. You're trying to make a point. And at the time, somehow in your mind, it's justifying it as this is a good idea. Even though probably deep down, who knows? I mean, that's why people study serial killers and all those things. So that's where I get into like good or bad choices. I'm taking it to an extreme because you kind of have to see like, well, yeah, this guy just chose to go out and do this. But then it goes to our last topic is, did you really have choices? And what was your upbringing and environment that got you to this point to feel like you had to make that choice to do something so drastic? So I know I just tied into like 3 different topics that we had. That's why I didn't go too deep into it. But going back to the very beginning, I don't believe that a choice can either be good or bad. It all determines on how you decide to look at it, right? If you're always looking at things as good or bad, and I'm afraid, then you become afraid to make a choice in general. And then you just are now moving in a life that's made of the same choices that you've always made that have kept you comfortable, safe, easy. You know the outcome. You don't have to worry about it. I've been at the same job for 40 years. I know exactly what my paychecks look like. I know exactly what's coming. I know everything just got easier at that point. I got comfortable and lazy, and that's my life. And sure, there's fun moments in between, the different things that you got to make. But at the end of the overscope of the entire life is, did you really challenge yourself? Did you really learn anything? Did you experience humanity at some level? Did you connect? What did you learn about yourself? So when I think about choices and making choices, I tend to lean into whether it has a bad outcome or a good outcome, which is subjective. I say subjective because I don't like to think of them as bad outcomes anymore. It's just, I made that choice, and I'm learning. What am I learning from at this point? Decided to quit my job and try to move forward into this business and go that route. And here I am 3 months later into a different job. Which, granted, I wanted to get into something like this that I'm working at now, but it's like, okay, why did I make that choice when it may not have been the best choice or smartest choice? But I learned a lot about myself. I understood a lot of the time and energy, what I want to do, and now we come full circle to, okay, now I'm at a point where this is where I believe the energy needs to move now, how I really feel. Because I got to experience in that time frame us doing this a lot, going and making watching music or working on music and seeing how that felt, and then trying to work on the business and seeing what really showed me how I desire my life to look and what I can focus on, what energy, where I want to put my energy. So yeah, was it on the outside scope of things a bad choice because I'm over here stressing and going through things? If you want to call it a bad choice, sure. I call it a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I feel like I want to recommend and suggest that you start looking at choices as just, I'm going to make this choice, and no matter what comes from it, I'm going to learn something, or I'm going to learn something, and it's going to be a beautiful outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be exactly how I saw it, how I wanted the choice to come to fruition.
Yeah. Well, dude, when you were kind of explaining it like that, I was thinking maybe we can think of it as a scale of resistance then, instead of right or wrong. And maybe resistance could be another scale on like that choice process or whatever. Because then I was thinking, like, no matter what your choice is, then maybe you're always going to end up at the outcome of like what your heart truly desires, because I feel like if that's full belief, or whatever, I'm kind of like going off tangent again, but like
that's why we swim with it.
Yeah, so like if we're going with like belief, then let's say you have this dream that you're chasing, and then we could kind of talk about like fate and destiny too, and like believing like fully with your heart something that's gonna happen. I feel then resistance, like thinking of it as resistance, no matter what choice you make, may lead to the same outcome, but there's different paths of resistance, and there's even a saying like, oh, I chose the path of least resistance.
Sure.
Even though like there's infinite amount of paths I could have taken, and they all have different levels of resistance, or even lessons. But I feel like that's where you can kind of maybe think of lessons, because like maybe
I feel like
you
sometimes though choosing the path of least resistance ends up you not fully achieving or manifesting what you desire your life to be. And maybe it depends. Maybe someone has like a really just kind of like, oh, I want to just be, get married, have kids, and live that life, and just kind of, look after them, and then, raise a family, and just, do that, and have some fun experiences along the way, and that becomes my life. It's basically family, kids, which is great. It's beautiful to see that, but at that point, I always am curious. I'm like, was there nothing else that you desire to create or build or do anything like that you chose a path of least resistance because this made you happy and that's the route you wanted to go, and you put off any other thing that maybe you wanted to do in your life?
Yeah.
And not necessarily sacrifice, but like you said, chose the path of least resistance just to be able to have a comfortable lifestyle. I don't know. Could be completely wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of the resistance thing, because it could be like, I have this dream, and I'm gonna make these choices that are gonna be difficult, that are gonna feel like and look like that's a terrible idea, terrible choices. But in my heart, I have this knowing that as I do make these choices, it's gonna be. But I'm learning a lot. I'm actively making my way towards that goal, or not towards the goal, but towards the manifestation of how I like to look. If I want to be freaking, I don't know, I want to be a dope musician, or I want to build a company, or I want to travel the world in a year. I don't know, crazy, like just not crazy, but things like that, or I want to be the greatest artist of all time in painting, or I want to make $1 million through a tech company or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna seem like that some of these choices where you're sacrificing some things, people are gonna be like, that was a bad choice, or that was stupid, that's a bad idea, why are you doing that? And you like, no, you're like, but I just feel like it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be a struggle, and that's where the resistance, the resistance is more, it's stronger and stronger resistance, because you're really pushing. And you could just choose the path of least resistance, right? Like you said, where you just like assimilate and, you know, go the safe route.
Well, I have two things I want to tell you. The way that I've heard of path of least resistance, and I don't know which one's right or wrong, but I thought path of least resistance, I've heard it in like the way of like where you're surrendering to like,
sure,
you know what I'm saying? It like, I wouldn't say path of least resistance is like taking the easy like.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying a little bit now?
But let me ask you this. Is it easy to surrender?
No.
Exactly.
But that's why path of, I see where you're saying it's a paradox. Path of least resistance. Yeah. Well,
it's hard for people to just go with the flow when things are hitting the fan, or when things are getting stressful, or when things are, you know, tough. It's like hard to just keep pushing and keep working at it, even though you're like, I literally put in like 16 hours of work today. I want to just do nothing, but I'm going to sit here and work on something that I'm passionate about, because I feel like if I do this, at least I'm putting energy towards it, right? 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day is really all you need. I tell everybody that. I'm like, dude, even if you work so much and you take 20 minutes out of your day, 30 minutes out of your day, instead of you just scrolling on Instagram, scrolling something, and you, like literally the other day, I was like, I'm really wanting to learn like coding. And I was, you know, hanging out with a girlfriend, and it was just like, I didn't have my music. I really wanted to make music. I was like, well, I don't have anything else to do. I'm just gonna stay here for 20 minutes, 30 minutes and do this. And we're gonna let it ride. And it was, it's something that you kind of have to make the choice to do. Because, again, you could just you could convince yourself, right? And this is where we get to the last question: do you really have choices? Or how aware of your conscious and subconscious choices are you? Would also be a good question to ask. Because you can fight the subconscious choice to just do nothing and blah blah blah, right? You have them tell you, say, or you could continue to tell yourself, I'm just so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. Of course, because you continue to tell yourself that, you're gonna be tired. That's where it goes. But you can't push yourself out of that. I think the one thing that's like taught so much is you have to be there it is. That when you're growing up, you get told that was a bad choice. That was good. You did good. You get praise for choices that you make, and then you get, you know, yelled at or told that was a bad choice. You shouldn't do that. Right? Instead of, all right, you made that choice and it, you know, you effed up. You were a teenager running around doing something, and you got put in, you know, cops picked you up, you know, called your parents. And like, that was a bad choice. Never do that again. Blah blah blah. Instead of being like, all right, what'd you learn? How'd that feel? Feel terrible? Yeah. Well, you think you're gonna do it again? There's like different ways to reprimand it to kind of help it click in the brain of like, yeah, I chose to do that and ended up in this outcome. Maybe that wasn't the smartest thing. And so there's so many ways that I think choices can really be interpreted because of the environment and the upbringing that you have. Like, for example, my entire life, I've been told that fast food was good. It's good for you. You get fast food all the time, parents, you got fast food. So you get older, you get on your own, all you're doing is eating fast food. You're telling everybody. Yeah, dude, fast food's great. It's so good for you. Like, you may not know any better, right? That was your choice, and that was depending on good. Other people can look at that choice and be like, that's a terrible choice. Like, what's happening to your body? So, I would say the outcome is what you can determine as good or bad, but I don't think the choice itself can be actually good or bad.
Yeah, going back to kind of what you were saying with like reframing it in your mind, because it kind of has a detrimental effect on like kids and like how you're growing up and like how you think. I feel you shouldn't phrase choices as bad or good, because then we'll just go with like the obvious things, right? Like you can feel more shameful, more guilty, but I feel like even over time, if you're told you're making bad decisions over and over and over again, you're just going to start thinking you're a bad person. And then once you start accepting that you're a bad person, I feel that's when you
don't have a choice.
Yeah, you have no choice, lost all control of your life, and then can't make a different decision. Yeah. So I definitely do think it's important that we reframe like how we I don't know, think of it, I guess.
Like how we approach choices, approach the good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Approach like the outcome of the choices that were made.
Yeah.
I think too, like as we get into it, one of the things this does hit on is like the self-sabotage part. Because when you're making those quote unquote, I'm gonna say this only for you guys, I'm only gonna really say bad or good choices. Right, you just heard my whole 2 cents on it, but I'm really only going to say these bad or good choices just for the sake of some of these examples. So, like, for example, if someone says, that was a really bad choice to not study for your test and you failed. You know, you look at that as the self-sabotage of the choice that you made. Now you're getting bad grades in school. Now you're not going to achieve, or you're not going to get into college. You know, could not be that drastic, but you could start to just slack off. And then you start to believe exactly what you said, like, you're this bad kid, I can't study, I can't do this, right? And no one really works with you on that, or helps you understand, okay, maybe you need to study a different way, or you need to look at it this way, or it's not necessarily bad. Like, let's look at the cause instead of you being like, you're a bad kid, you didn't study, you're failing your classes, you're just always going to be a bad kid.
Yeah. Right?
And you're always going to make bad choices. And they get some grit in your head, I'm always going to make bad choices. So when we look at self-sabotage in the concept of choice making, we have to also take a look at what is the level of self-awareness that this person might have. Because, again, going to the upbringing and your programming, if you don't know any better, you may not even know that you're actually sabotaging yourself. And you're just going through the motions, and you're just making these poor choices, again, not learning any lessons, I'm just going to say that, right? And your choices are having poor outcomes. I'm going to say it that way. Your choices are having bad outcomes, not good outcomes for you. And it's causing you to have to really dig deep to really be aware that you are self-sabotaging. Like my football coach, I would call it self-inflicted wounds. We're on defense. We're doing self-inflicted wounds. You're not backpedaling the right way. You're not opening your hips right. You're taking a hesitation step, or you're stepping forward when you should have stepped back at the first play. Like these little self-fulfilling wounds like bite you in the end, right? They have
Yeah.
bad outcomes, right? And so that was one thing that really stuck with me is like, am I actually sabotaging myself by making these choices? And it's interesting because everyone does it. But I think, and I'm going to go with this for a little bit, is the self-sabotage has to also do with a large part of your own worthiness in yourself.
Mm.
Because, and go deeper into this here, if you feel like you have no worth, or you feel like the things that you are wanting to bring to, whether it be a relationship or a conversation or, you know, a work project or something along those lines, and you feel like you have good input, but you don't actually say anything or do the input, you just think about it, and then you go back and tell your friends that, oh my god, these people are so dumb, they won't listen to me, or not that they won't listen to me, but like, they're doing all these things, they have all these ideas, so you just say something? No. Because inside, internally, you may not have the self-worth and belief in self that you can provide something to someone else or to a company or to our project or to something creative. Also goes to the same people who, there's probably thousands, millions of people who create some beautiful works of art but never sees the light of day because they don't believe that anyone would care to listen or see it. This will probably change a little bit now with social media and people just like, fuck it, put it out there, see what happens, right? But that is something that I feel like, sure, people deal with and struggle with every day. You know, you're making tons and tons of stuff and it's never getting put out because you're just like, yeah, I don't know, right? I deal with that. Oh. And so I think when you boil it down to a point, the self-sabotaging choices that you make in turn are reflecting a part of yourself that you are unaware is happening inside of you. Self-doubt, you know, negative self-worth, you know, not good enough, those kinds of things. And until you are aware that that's a part of you, you will continue to make self-sabotaging choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna just follow up on that and say that self-sabotaging, because I, as probably many of millions of people have like done self-sabotaging a lot in my youth, I feel like I could remember there was literally like sorry, I'm saying like a lot, but there's literally a lot of levels of awareness, different levels of awareness that I had until I finally realized that I was self-sabotaging. And then, like you were saying, they are linked to these deeper fears. Like, that was crazy. I remember when I was first starting to like realize what was going on inside me. It was crazy to just know that they were actually just fears. Mm-hmm. That was insane. And I just feel like that helped a lot, is just to know when they're fears, then you can kind of like have more control over how you're feeling and what you're believing and telling yourself. But
as you don't know about it,
yeah,
you just don't know.
Yeah, and I feel until you, like, if you're on that level, kind of that base level of you're just, everything's really subconscious and you're just acting out of, oh, thanks. If you're, nice.
Don't worry, it's just water.
If you're still at that level of most of what you're doing is subconscious and you're making the same decision over and over, but you have other people involved, you have yourself involved, you're making decisions that are affecting others, but then you're also making decisions that are literally just directly not, I guess, dangerous to you, detrimental to you. Like, but your mind will still tell you that that's just how you are. That's who you are. Identity has a lot to do with it, because identity is formed by your beliefs of, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all circulating the same things, but
see how it's all connected.
yeah, it's all connected, and like, it's complex too, but also simple at the same time. When you start breaking it down, a lot is going on within your like mental, emotional well-being, but like, I don't know, just starting to become aware of the things, like listen to what people around you are telling you, because I remember, and then at the same time, personally in my story, I feel I always had good intentions. Like, my intentions, I felt, were like heart-based sometimes. Like, if you think of like your deep intentions of, let's go back to childhood, like, why are you like self-sabotaging? Most likely your intention is to receive love, or to, like, that's a pure intention though. That's like a beautiful like base of like, you desire love. That's fine. That's not a bad thing to desire love. No. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I know what you're saying. There's a part of me, I don't know why, but part of me was like, well, I mean, it could be, I don't know, you know, not getting the affection to desire love. It's like, what if we're desiring that, what are we not fulfilling for ourselves? That's kind of where I went to. But you're a kid, so it's not like you really know that.
That's what I'm saying. And they do play off each other, and there's a distinction that I want to make between, like, like you're saying, definitely need to provide that to yourself. But like, if that was the base fear, like from childhood, you know what I mean? You just wanted, everyone wants and deserves love. Yeah. So, but yeah, you need to supply that to yourself. But until you, like, that's kind of what I was saying, is like the intention behind all that, like your choices are mostly probably driven by some like lack of love or attention in your childhood. Whatever that is for every individual's story, like, you need to understand where you weren't receiving that, and then how your actions now are literally reflecting that. Because like, yeah, I don't know, I just feel self-sabotage is so like gripping, and like, until you realize that it's happening. And like, something that helped me was just understanding how much actual anxiety, pain, and like mental fog is going on when these things are happening. Like, you're not clear, you're not at peace, you're constantly anxious, but you're feeling like, oh, I'm having a good time, I'm making these decisions for myself, whatever, like, I'm having a good time, I got friends, whatever, like, whatever your story is. But like, I feel like there's always things in your mind where it's gonna probably like try to make it seem like you're okay when you're not okay.
Yeah, well, to that point, your mind is always going to be one of the biggest things that I will continuously suggest you start to practice mental games, just little things that force you to think and force you to use your mental capacity and sit with the thoughts that you have, instead of things that are easily where you can just drone out, watch TV, sit in front of something and do nothing, or, you know, completely ignore your own thought process, and you just want to, you know, zone out. I get that too, because you're like, I've been thinking all day, I don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what have you been thinking about? Well, you go to work, all you're thinking about is your job, what you're doing at work, and then you also think about family, and there's no space for you to understand yourself. So as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, when you have that space and time to do so, is when you should really start to understand your own inner workings and your own inner monologue. If you don't have an inner monologue, your feelings, your emotions, how you actually react and feel to the world. Some people think in images, and so how are those images making you feel when you are sitting inside your mind? There's a billion ways to really think. So when I say inner monologue, I'm meaning all those things, because that's going to help you understand and bring more awareness to why I'm making these choices. Start asking yourself that question. If you have to ask it out loud, ask it. If you have to journal at the end of the day, why did I do this today? You really think about it. Why did I do that today? What really prompted me to go throw that snowball at Henry? I don't know. Like, what, I don't know. So there's a space in here that when you tap into that space, you're always tapped into it, by the way. When you start to bring those questions to not what did Henry do that made me want to throw the snowball, to why did I feel like throwing that snowball at Henry, and ignore anything that comes where it says, well, Henry did this or Henry did that, and so that's what I want to do. No, you don't want to focus on the outside stuff. What internally brought you to this place of why I want to throw this snowball at Henry? Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to get Henry's attention. I like Henry. I thought it would be a funny joke. There's that starts to understand. You start to understand yourself instead of start looking at the reality outside of you. You start to understand how I work, how my programming is. And when you start to understand that, then you can start to bring awareness to, why did I not answer that phone call when that could have been a great opportunity? Why did I turn this person down for a date when that could have been a beautiful thing? What was I, and then you start going, was I afraid of something? Instead of constantly being like, well, they look like this, they brought this red flag, they did this, the job doesn't seem to be lined up with this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, start bringing it to you personally. Then you bring awareness of, wow. If you didn't answer the phone call because I felt internally that wasn't the right, I was getting weird vibes, I would say, okay, you actually know yourself a little bit, instead of being like, well, they didn't offer me this or they didn't do that. It's like, okay, well, I get that too, but were you just afraid to actually commit to something that might open up opportunities for your life? So start bringing those internal, and then you start bringing in awareness, and then you can start catching these points of where you're actually self-sabotaging in the choices that you're making throughout your day. Now, since we talked about it, I want to dive into intentionality and opportunities, because intentional choices, being intentional with your choices. We are going to do an entire episode on intention, by the way. Will probably be the next one. We'll see. But that's a choice we'll have to make. Sorry, couldn't resist. Anyways, the intentions behind the choices that you have, I've brought them up before. I can't remember the guy's name. I brought him up in a podcast before. I watched him on After School, the YouTube channel, who said, as long as your choices are not in, I don't know if it was choices, but basically he's saying you can't wrong someone. If your choice is to deliberately use somebody for your own personal gain, that's immoral. I think that was like the basis of it. So like, I'm choosing to, let's say I'm choosing to say something about somebody so that way I can get a promotion, or I'm choosing to sabotage your stuff so that way I can get ahead of you, or I can make X amount of dollars, or I'm choosing to put my company and use labor in other countries so that way I can continue to make more money. That's a little immoral. And, could be, subjective, again, you don't mind. But you're then using someone else. You're using another soul. You're using another person who has a life, who has, things that they want to achieve, things that they want to do, and that, in turn, there's no consent. You're just using them, right? I think that's where that becomes a wrong intention. If that is your intention, I would say it's always going to end up, at some point, the truth is going to come out, and it's going to end up actually hurting you and sending you down a whole different path karmically on a spiritual level. Now, when we talk about making intentional choices, let's go to, I guess one of the fun ones, is one of the choices I've made recently is to be vegan. It's a fun one.
Nice.
So, was I having any health problems or anything like that with eating meat and cheese and things like that? No. The choice and the intention behind the choice was to clean up the body after doing research on some of the things that we eat. And so eating a little bit more healthier are some of the vegan options. Some of them are processed, sure. But a lot of what I eat is more natural foods, organic foods. I'm not saying this is for everybody, I'm just trying to explain the intentional choices, so please don't take this as me pushing veganism.
That'd be crazy.
That would be wild.
That'd be insane.
That would be wild. But no, that's not the point.
Yeah.
And so the intentional was a personal intention for my own body. Have I been starting to feel that way? Yes, 100%. But then again, it is all personal beliefs. I'm just trying to explain the concept of intentional choices. It is something that when you put intention into a choice, it has more energy behind it and actually can manifest a lot quicker. So sitting with big choices that you're making, like big decisions on taking X amount of job or doing this or doing that. Let me just see.
I know, I was watching her.
Are you praying to the food gods?
That's hilarious.
You still got an hour and a half to think about
Aww. Can you change it?
Yeah, I mean, I can give her some food right now.
No, I mean, yeah, no, that's all good.
But
She's
putting intention behind your choices and sitting with it. And now intention is not necessarily a goal. Intention is, I intend to provide a safe space for others to be able to be themselves. That's a choice that I've made. So whenever I go out in any sort of social or even a one-on-one, that is an intentional choice that I've made to allow other person to feel comfortable and be able to be themselves. So whenever I'm in there, I always am like constantly making sure, by allowing them to be them, and it starts to become second nature, just like tying your shoes, riding a bike, same thing. So those would be considered like intentional choices. You can have intentional choices for a job of like, I intend this position to be something along these lines of gives me the opportunity for growth, there's good coworkers, there's good camaraderie, or even for an art piece, like I really intend to bring out this feeling in this art piece. Those are choices that you're making intentionally when you're creating something that you want it to have an energetic feeling.
Yeah, just to add on to that real quick, to kind of elaborate on the difference between intention and goals. I feel intention is tied to like your values and who you are. And then goals are the end of, or like your desired outcome that you want. Because like, for example, I just had this is like a real life example in a conversation I just had with someone. Someone can say their intentions for wanting to be a school teacher is because they love that kids have beautiful energy, they feel young, they feel energetic, and that's why they love being around kids. But another person can say, oh, well, I like being around kids, and my intention to be around kids is because I like to be a role model. I like to have that grounding of like, someone's looking up to me, so I know that's gonna help me make, like, that's gonna influence my decisions. You know what I'm saying? So that's like a difference in intentionality too, right there.
Yeah. I can see that,
Yeah. I just popped in my mind.
I like that. I do. Let's see where we're at for time. Ooh, should we get to the fun one? I think we're ready to move on. Oh no! Almost forgot. Habits and addictions.
Oh yeah. Where are we at right now?
Like 52 minutes.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, we're doing good. A lot of this tied together, so it's kind of nice. Now, habits and addictions also ties into, do you really have choices?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? One thing I think okay. So this is gonna be kind of a touchy subject. The only reason I'm saying it's gonna be a touchy subject is because those with addiction are definitely gonna say it's not a choice. Right? And I get that. I also get the fact that as you consistently make the choice to indulge in the addiction, it's changing slowly the chemistry of the brain and the thought process.
Mm.
Once you get to a point where you start saying there's no way I can get out of this, there's no way back, I'm always going to be addicted, it's always going to be there, then it starts to become your life. Then it starts to be a habit and addiction and not necessarily a choice anymore because you've now ingrained this into your subconscious. Sad to say. Can you reverse that? Yes. Does it take a lot of self-awareness and a lot of grit and a lot of moving through resistance, self-resistance? Yes. So, needless to say, I would say, to a degree, habits and addictions are a choice. Mostly because once it's already brought to your awareness that yes, I'm addicted, you are going to have the thought when you go to engage in the addiction again, whether it be drinking, smoking, whatever it is, that this is something I shouldn't do. And it's whether you listen to that or you go and just indulge in the addiction, that is the choice that you're making, right? That is the choice that I have to make right there in that process. And so if you have the self-awareness to do that, to pause yourself, then yes, you can actually make the other choice. It's gonna suck. It's gonna hurt. Emotionally, it's gonna hurt. Like, it's gonna be like, you're gonna feel like you need it. You're gonna be like, I need this cigarette. You know? Sometimes alcohol can get so deep to where the body literally needs it because you've started to destroy the internal organs. And that then is something that, seeing a medical doctor, so we'll get into that part, but the choice behind it is you always have one way or another. I can do this or I cannot do this. And I think that's where it lies in to the justification of the thought process of knowing yourself. Because if you don't believe that you have a choice, how are you going to be able to make a choice, right? If I get fallen into this, well, I have to do this. Yeah, I've been doing it for 15 years. I've been smoking for 15 years. Yeah, I don't really have a choice. Yeah, I'm in it now. Might as well, right? You start to, again, like you said, it starts to become your identity. And I think that was one thing that we talked about when we talked about addiction, was like the AA part. We just cut for a second. But
Yeah, I was like, wait, did it just stop us?
it's
Can
still
you-
recording, but
Can you double check the camera real quick? Just want to make sure we're good.
yeah, camera's good. Is that good?
Yeah, it's good. That was just
Cool. I'm gonna I don't want to do it. It's not frozen.
It's still going, still recording.
Yeah, it's still recording.
Yeah, don't mess with it. Yeah.
And so that's where, like, I think it can become kind of a point where it's no longer a choice. Now it's an addiction or
Habit.
habit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, habit and addiction. What's the difference?
That's what I was saying. Yeah, habit
What's
is
really the
addiction. Yeah.
difference? No, it's
Or sorry, addiction
force
is
a
a
habit. Okay, so you're addicted to doing that.
Yeah.
It's just a nicer term to say, you know, I gotta force a habit of always, you know, like OCD cleaning. You know, I don't know. It's a habit. You're picking at your face. You're doing
Yeah.
something. Oh, it's a habit.
And
you're addicted to that.
Yeah.
For some reason,
Mm-hmm.
something. Yeah, it could be self-worthy. I don't know what it could be. Where it stems from, right? Obviously, it depends on the person. But it's also, if you already know you do that, if you've been called out on it, or you've been talked to about it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because sometimes you're just like, well, I'm just doing this, you know, I don't, like some alcoholics, I don't really know I'm addicted, or they just sit in denial, and don't want to believe it. Then you're ignoring that, but then you're not really making a choice. You're just kind of falling in line with these things until you have the awareness that this is an addiction, and you can, as you're indulging in it, have that thought or feeling like this isn't good for me. That's when then you can decide to make a different choice and redirect the energy and redirect the programming that you have, redirect the habit, redirect the addiction.
Another thing to think about with addiction and worthiness and the identity part of it, and then you just said something too that triggered it. It was well, I was gonna say, you said if you are aware that it's not good for me. I feel even with addiction, they can be aware that it's not good for them, but the other part of what's driving them to do it in the first place is like the worthiness aspect is bigger than that. And that's where it's like,
that's where you make the choice to keep doing it.
Yeah. And I was gonna say something about habits too. Kind of lost my train of thought, but that was basically.
I think that's a good segue right
Yeah.
into, do we really have choices?
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, do we?
I think we have a choice because I feel like awareness gives us the ability to make the choice. And as long as we have awareness, we can make a different choice.
Sure.
And I feel like the will we or will we not is that individual's own like purpose, story, whatever. But I feel maybe that part isn't as much of like a choice of like I have no other choice to become a great musician or whatever you feel like your story is. But the little choices that I do to get there are mine. Like I am seeing constantly and weighing out like consequences versus like my consequences of these decisions that I'm making. So like I'm still able to kind of weigh that out and see there's subconscious things at play. Like if I'm hurting myself, or like we were going into self-sabotage, if I'm self-sabotaging, like I can still pull myself out of that, but it takes the awareness to make that different choice. What awareness is, like when that comes and how it comes and timing of it all, who knows? Like that's the part I don't know, like why and when, I'm not sure, but I do feel awareness eventually will come. Like
can you fast track the awareness?
Yeah.
I think I would agree. And until it's brought into your awareness, that's where it goes, do you really have a choice then?
Of to keep doing the old pattern.
Because if that awareness is never brought to your attention, if you never change something in your life to bring that awareness to you, then you're going to continuously do the same thing and have the same choices based on the program that you have, because you never were brought anything new to your awareness to learn something new, to learn that there's another option.
But
right?
I feel
so
like
I'm not saying that there, I believe there's, I think it's like what we talked about, like conditional free will, conditional choices, right? Same thing, same concept. Yes, you do have choices, obviously. Your choices, though, are determined by your experience and the program that you have of, well, this choice ended up in this outcome, this choice ended up in this outcome. If you have the awareness to be like, well, I tried this, I might as well try this third option. And you've tried all three options, and then you come to something that's like some sort of similar scenario. You're like, well, I've never actually really tried option 4. I just found out this option 4. Why don't I try this? All right, it's like when I go into IT job, I'm like troubleshooting, like random equipment. It's like, well, have we tried this? Have we tried this? We try unplugging it. Try plugging it back in. You tried pushing this button, holding it down, doing this. Have you tried unplugging something from the wall? Have you tried moving it closer? Have you tried opening the window? Like all these random options and just seeing the bigger. So like, the more that you do that though, the more that you challenge. That's why I said earlier, it's like I challenge you to bring it internal, because the more that starts to open up your awareness to different options and different choices. When they talk about the knowledge that you seek is within, like you don't have to really go anywhere or try to study much. Right? The knowledge of it, if you literally start asking yourself these questions, start to get answers, or start to get different perspectives. Like, hey, I don't know another way. Can you help me see another way? People might think that's, God gave me a different direction. It's great. I'm glad you see that as God. I'm glad you see it as some sort of higher power that's going to shift some sort of choice or direction or awareness that you're seeking and give that to you so you can make a better choice for your life, or, for better life returns. Choice that gives you a better outcome for your life. So if you don't have a push though, or a desire to experience or create different awarenesses, you may be one of those, depending on your beliefs, you may be one of those people that reincarnates here over and over again, because you're only really making, in the grand scheme of life, the same 5 choices. I wake up. Do you see what I'm saying?
You're making me think of something that's probably going to carry our conversation on for a while. But, dude, it's interesting.
Does it have to do with intention at all?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so we can say this. Can you write it down?
Yeah, let me throw it out there, and can I just
throw it out there?
Throw it out there, and then if you don't want to go into it,
yeah, let's do it.
Because I was gonna say like, watch me forget. Dude.
You're just trying to figure out how to word it?
Yeah. Like, I was going to say, like, what if you... No, I actually forgot it.
Did you really?
I actually did. Wait, because I had it when you were saying what you just said, but, dude, now
we're talking about
maybe it's a sign.
We're talking about the awareness.
Yeah, the awareness of... Well, no, mine was gonna be more about like, oh, that's what it was. I was gonna say, cause you were kind of saying like the whole like awareness, how if you're not reaching for it and you're making like similar decisions over and over again, like how are you supposed to pull in other solutions or whatever kind of
deeper awarenesses to make different choices.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think there's ever, I feel like people are faced with that all the time though. I feel like that's where we are given the choice, because I feel like someone can be making the same choice, but like maybe we're saying the same thing actually now, and I didn't know you were saying it like that, but like there's not the opportunity to reach for more. It's just that like that I even feel like people even know that there's a different choice that they could do, and like that awareness is there, but I feel like it goes back to the worthiness again of like, will they believe that it's possible, or will they believe that it's actually true for them? Because again, the identity part for them specifically. You know what I'm saying? But
and
like,
that's why you have to look internal to really start to break open some of these things, so you can go out in the world and believe it. So like the example that came to mind is like, I've been going to this same yoga class for 10 years, but I don't ever say anything because I don't believe I have any good input, right?
Yeah.
Or and I could be going through some things. Finally, I decide to say something, or someone comes up and it's like, it's one of the people that's also been going to the same yoga class for the same amount of time. You've always seen them, but you never said anything. You finally say something and they have the answer to the problem that you've been struggling with for 10 plus years. They bring you an insight, bring you an awareness, and you're just like, I've been here for 10 years and I thought this was, and here you are having an answer, and you've been in the same class for that long. But you could have had that awareness 9 years ago, 10 years ago when you first came in, if you would have decided to feel like and you wanted to engage and make the choice to speak or speak up about yourself and say something. But it took you 10 years to do that. Or it took 10 years for them to finally realize maybe something's going on and they wanted to speak out. And so it's like, it does come. However, it also plays into the part of, well, do you believe you're ready for it? Do you believe you're worthy of it? Do you believe you deserve it? You know, if you don't believe it, you're going to keep pushing off the opportunities that arise and shake them off as, well, yeah, that's not it. That's not the sign. It doesn't look this way, or it's not this how I pictured it to be, right? And so you start just ignoring and going in different pathways and staying in the same choices. So, because then those start to reinforce the choices you've already made in your life. So, to an extent, yes, you have the ability to make your own choices. How the outcome, what's it say? How many variations of choices you have, I would say is determined by how aware of self you really are. Yeah, I think we'll end on that. You got something else.
I'm trying to hold back.
I can see it in your face, dog.
What? You really saw it?
Dude, as I was saying that last phrase, I was like, Nicki's about to bring up some more shit.
I'm sorry, dude. Where are we at? I'll write this one down if I have to.
69 minutes. 70 minutes.
70 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. I was just gonna say, last, I guess to nail it into the coffin, whatever. Like, I know that's not what it is, but with intention again, really, fuck. Yeah, I knew I should have stopped. Is it still going?
It's still going.
Okay. Alright. Well, again, with like opportunities and trying to rethink these like parts of yourself, because all these are parts of yourself that you're actually sifting through, like to make decisions. So if it's really bothering you and you can't seem to sever yourself from this like identity of like, I keep making this decision because this is who I am, you have to rethink about your intention, because a lot of the time, kind of with what Josh was saying, like, you're presented with the same, like, decision over and over and over again until you learn the lesson. But maybe the change that you're trying to make seems really far, or really, like, maybe separate from you. But I feel like if you, it could literally just be a change in, like, how you're thinking of it. Like, it could still be a same, like, a similar, like...
Yeah. Hey. Yeah.
It could still be, like, a similar, maybe, thought, but, or desire or whatever, but I feel like I'm, like, getting caught up in, like, am I explaining it? Okay, but I'm trying to say, like, sometimes the change that you are trying to actually make to make the better choice is actually just a change in your intention, and that's why you have to, like, look at what your beliefs about yourself are, because maybe it's not a completely different thing you never thought of. Maybe it was just, like, the way you were thinking about it has to be different. Like,
yeah,
I
see what you're saying.
I don't know.
Yeah, you made a good point. It's the way that you think about yourself in turn determines also the choices that you make, because maybe you wouldn't have made that choice if you had believed in yourself, but you were so afraid, you know, and you didn't feel like you could even achieve something, so you never made that choice even though you felt like you should. Right? And it took you 5+ years to finally gain some sort of confidence and self-worth to make that decision and make that choice.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. Cool.
All right, and we out. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Peace.
Much love.
Thank you.
Keep spreading the word. If you really enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, put your button on that like button, and share it with a friend. You know, share it to someone that you feel like might need to hear this. Also, feel free to reach out. Yeah. Thanks. Much love.
Thanks.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in on today's episode of the Soully Living Podcast. If anything resonated with you today, please like, subscribe, and follow our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Soully Living Podcast. For those of you wishing to take a deeper journey within yourself, or maybe gain some clarity or guidance, please check out my website at www.soullyliving.com. Again, very grateful for every one of you that have tuned in today. Look forward to hearing from you and connecting with you down the road. Please have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your journey.